Hi everybody, thanks so much for joining us. So this will be my last evening with for a little while. As I'm sure most of you know, I'm about to go off on maternity leave quite imminently. And we're joined on the call tonight by some of our team and by Jo, who is our new interim CEO. Some of you may recognise Jo. She used to be our head of fundraising a couple of years ago. But we'll come on to introducing Jo properly later in the evening. And we just wanted to start by sharing with you some updates that have been happening in Uganda over the last few months since we kind of last caught up. So as many of you know, during the COVID pandemic, the families that we work with in the slums in Kampala were really struggling to survive. So we converted our projects, our education centres and our children's activities into community food banks. And since then, these food banks have been a complete lifeline to so many. And over the last 3 to 4 years, we're so proud that we've been able to provide over 45 million meals, which is incredible. And we're really pleased about the impact of that. But, you know, when we opened them, we really thought they'd be a temporary measure. We were really expecting them to just be open for COVID and to help people recover from the pandemic. But sadly, the current cost of living crisis, inflation in Uganda just really means that they are still needed, sadly. And they're still going and they're still providing a lifeline to so many people in need. And just in the last 6 months alone, we've managed to support 162 families, 500 children, and 261 adults. So really, if it wasn't for these food banks, people would really struggle. As I said, long term, we don't want our food banks to still be running. Ideally, we want people to be able to stand on their own 2 feet and not have to rely on our food bank support. But at the moment, as I said, there's been huge inflation in Uganda, particularly affecting the price of food. Food prices just in the last year have doubled, and they'd already increased massively in the years post the COVID pandemic anyway. So they are still needed. And obviously when food prices increase for families who live hand to mouth and for families on very low incomes, like the families that we support in the slums, they really can't survive. It really impacts those people the most. Alongside our food bank work, which is obviously a big part of what we do, over the last 6 months, we're also really pleased about all that we've managed to achieve. So we've currently got 96 children who are attending our Encouraging Education project. And these are children who are completely out of school, have never been to school before and don't have access to education. They've all been coming along to get free education plus a hot meal every single day, which is making a huge difference to them and their families. And alongside the Encouraging Education project, we've also got almost 200 children who are being sponsored to go to school. And I know some of you on the call this evening do sponsor children to go to school. And I'm sure that you know the huge impact that has on these children's lives to completely transform them. As I said, we don't want people long term to be relying on our food banks. Long term, we want to help people get out of poverty. And education is a great way to break down those barriers and to help people get out of poverty. Alongside this, we've had over 800 children regularly attending our Saturday Kids Clubs over the last few months. And at these Saturday Kids Clubs, children get to come together, to play, to have fun, and to just enjoy being children away from the worries and stresses of their everyday lives. They have an opportunity to meet together, to pray together, and also, again, to get a hot meal, which does make a really big difference. And alongside our Saturday Kids Clubs, children who need it can get referred for counselling and for further support. And our Kids Clubs are really a great kind of entry point. Lots of children, this is the first way that they sort of connect with us, and through us and through our kids clubs, that children are often then able to maybe self-disclose or report any concerns that they might have to our volunteer team, who are then, if needed, they can then escalate that to our safeguarding officers, and we can help them with any child protection that they need. And we have had children who we've referred to counselling, or their family has been referred for family mediation, or in some extreme circumstances we've had to intervene slightly further with authorities to make sure that that child is safe. And sometimes those children get referred to our Awafe project, which is our home for children who have been abandoned or lost, or who aren't able to stay with their families for any reason. And the Awafe project, again, we're really, really proud of the impact that it's had over the past few months. We've actually, in the last 6 months, been able to resettle more children than we ever have before. This programme, we've sort of significantly invested in it for 2023, recognising that during the COVID pandemic, there was suddenly a huge increase in sort of, sadly, cases of safeguarding cases of children being abused or abandoned. So we invested in this project, and as I said, over the past 6 months, we've been able to reunite children with more families than ever before. And at the beginning of this year, we launched our foster care programme, and we are so pleased that that is going well, that we've got several children who are now living with foster carers, which is just really, really wonderful to see. So that's just some updates from Uganda. A bit of a whistle-stop tour. Please do put any questions you have in the chat. We're more than happy to talk to you about more what's going on in Uganda. And we hope to kind of, provide more information about different projects as time goes on. But if you would like any more info about anything, please do feel free to ask. Also, one thing which I'm going to move on to talking about now, which I know many of you have probably been following the updates and have possibly been part of the appeal campaign that we launched last year. But amazingly, I'm really pleased to announce that our Hope Centre building has just been completed. So for those of you that don't know, or who would like a refresher, last Christmas we launched a big fundraising appeal to build our Hope Centre. And this is so that we can allow more people to access vocational training. As I said, the slums that we work in, they're really challenging. There's really, really high levels of unemployment. We've got large numbers of families relying on the food banks. And as much as we love to support people with their basic needs, with food and etc., long term, we want people to get out of poverty. But the challenge is for lots of adults, if they've never had the opportunity for education, if they've never gone to school, if they're unemployed, it's really, really difficult for people to actually get out of poverty if they don't have any skills. So what we've wanted to do with the Hope Centre is to be able to allow more adults to access vocational training, to be able to get a skill, to be able to get a qualification and a means to start their own business, and to have a sustainable source of income. And through this centre, we will be able to have double the number of people learning skills and getting their vocational training in this way than we've been able to do before. We have vocational training projects. They're quite small. The physical space is quite small, and we rented the areas, and we've had some issues with having to move spaces. But we've been able to build our own training centre, and I'm really pleased to announce that it's completely finished. It took slightly longer than expected. We were hoping it to be ready a couple of months ago, but it took slightly longer than expected. Partly due to, I've already mentioned, but inflation and the cost of materials and building in Uganda, it's been more costly than expensive. But we also had a few issues that as we're building in a slum, we had some issues with drainage. So in Kampala, the slums are sort of in the low-lying, swampy valleys, and all the sort of wealthy people live on top of the hills. And because we were building in a slum, we had some issues with kind of drainage on the land. So we had to invest in sort of rechanneling some of the drainage system. And we also wanted to increase kind of the sanitation in the area. So we've also built a toilet block into the building, which wasn't in part of the original plans, but actually makes a huge difference in terms of sanitation. But we're really excited that the building's complete, and in 2 weeks' time, we're going to be having an official launch in Kampala. So please do keep your eyes out for photos and updates of those. I'm sure in our next newsletter and on our social media, you'll see lots of pictures from that. So do please keep your eyes peeled. But we're going to have a big celebration to launch the event, and also the current students who are training are going to be graduating from the new centre, and it's just going to be a huge celebration. So for those of you who donated to our campaign last Christmas or who helped share the appeal, and for those that have been praying for this project, just want to say a massive thank you. Wouldn't have been possible without you, and we're really pleased that it's going to be open, and we're going to be able to help more families get out of poverty for the long run. I just wanted to share, this is just one story, just an example of somebody who's been part of our tailoring course over the past year. This is Olivia, and she has been part of our training course in tailoring at our Kanyanya centre. But as I said, this centre, it's quite small, there's not enough space, it's quite overcrowded, it's quite dark and dingy, and being able to move to this new centre is going to make a huge difference. But she says, learning a new skill in tailoring is the best thing that's ever happened to me. I'm so grateful that I've started earning from the skill. I'm getting orders from friends and family and other people who like my work. And when school starts again, I'll have saved enough money to cover my school fees. And so she's in secondary school, but she had to drop out because she couldn't afford it. But amazingly, we've been able to help her get a skill, and she's putting herself back through education, which I just think is really inspiring. That, you know, her hard-earned money, she's choosing to use that to further her education. So I just think that's a really nice example of someone who's been helped through that project, and we're really looking forward to being able to help even more people through this new Hope Centre. I just wanted to share with you as well. I don't know how easily you can see this. If you're on a phone or something, don't worry if you can't see it very well. I'm aware they might be some of the words might be quite small, but this is up on our website, so we will be sharing this as well. But just wanted to share with you, this is what we call our theory of change, which is a bit technical, but basically what we do and what we aim to do in our long-term vision as a charity is to help people move from just surviving to truly thriving. And we have 4 program areas, which is feeding, protection, education, and skilling. And long term, we don't, as I said, we don't want people to just stay receiving our food banks. We know that our food banks are vital and they're really helping people to survive, but we don't want to just stop there. We are working, which is why we're doing our vocational training, which is why we're investing in education. It's so that long term people can move to truly thriving and that they no longer need our support. It sounds a strange thing to say, but long term we don't want to be needed. Long term, we want to work ourselves out of a job because poverty will have been reduced and people are no longer needing to access our services. So this is kind of just a nice little visual which explains how we work, why we're doing it, and what our long-term plan is, not just for individuals, but also for whole communities. Long term, we want to see whole communities getting lifted out of poverty through our support. We've just put a link in the chat if anyone's interested in reading about that in a bit more detail. We've got a blog post which kind of explains a bit more about our model and how we work. And this is something that, you know, I think we know what we do. We've known what we do for a long time, but sometimes it's just nice seeing it visually on a screen. And we've got one thing that we're going to move on to talking about now, but we've got this appeal going out on Radio 4 in just over a week's time. And what's really exciting about this is we're going to be sharing a story. This is Annie here, and we're going to be sharing Annie's story on Radio 4. And Annie's story is so inspiring. I won't tell you the whole story because I don't want to give it away. I want you to be able to listen into the radio and really enjoy hearing it. But basically, Annie came to us in desperate need. Her and her family were really struggling to survive. And she received vital food parcels from our food banks that completely sustained her. And if she hadn't had those food parcels, I don't know where her and her children would have been. But our support for her didn't stop there. She enrolled in one of our vocational training centres. She decided to learn tailoring skills. And now she's started her own business. She no longer needs our food banks. Her children don't even need to come to her education projects because she's able to pay for their school fees herself. And she's also helping to support and train her other people in her community. And she's just a real inspiration. And that kind of, I think it's just a lovely example of how our theory of change works in practice, that she came into us in desperate need, just surviving, but she's managed to move out of that and she is now truly, truly thriving. So she's a real inspiration. And I'm really pleased to say that, yes, we're going to be able to have her story shared on Radio 4 in just over a week's time. So do listen out to that. That will be on Sunday, the 17th of September. So please do make a date, make a note, save a date in your diary. So that you can listen out and hear more about Annie's story on the radio, which we're really, really excited about. Chloe, over to you.
Thanks, Olivia. So we wanted to talk a little bit more about our time at the BBC studios, because it's not every day that you get let into the BBC studios. So it was really exciting. There's Olivia and I with Sheila Atim. So hopefully some of you have seen, we've been sharing it kind of quite broadly online and on social media, that Sheila, who was actually born in Uganda, but then she moved to the UK, and she's quite a well-known actress, and she's really, really passionate about what we do. We had quite a few interactions and calls with her, and it was just really, really brilliant to have such a well-known face kind of working with us. So part of what Sheila will be talking about as part of our appeal, as Olivia said, is sort of sharing our approach to working with families and working with communities, but it'll be talking about all of our different projects. So not one specific area, but how we kind of support people over the course of their life through so many different ways. So Sheila was just brilliant on the day, and we really, really enjoyed kind of meeting with her. And I personally really enjoyed just getting into the BBC studios. I'd always seen it from the outside as a really sort of it's a big shiny building if you've been there yourself or if you've seen it in central London. So Olivia and I kind of went there a couple of weeks ago, and we are sharing the content quite broadly across social media, but we really would love to hear your feedback, and please do listen out for the appeal when it goes live, as Olivia said, next Sunday. So, and it's also a really great opportunity for us as an organisation, because we're hoping there's going to be a really big potential audience listening to that. So we're hoping that it will also help new potential audiences kind of come across us as an organisation and find out more about what we do. And it's not every day that you get featured on the radio, so we did have to go through a process of applying and kind of go through quite a lot of different sort of stages and putting forward lots of information about our organisation. So it was really, really exciting to work with the BBC, but also to have this opportunity to showcase what we do. So later this week, we're also going to be sharing a sort of special message from Sheila. So she talks in more detail about kind of what she personally likes about us as an organisation. As you can see a little bit on this message here, I think Sheila was really passionate about that we're looking, as Olivia said, at long-term solutions. So although we've got our food banks, we're kind of helping people across many different aspects of their lives. And that was something that during each conversation we had with Sheila, she really expressed that that was something that she was really passionate about as a Ugandan British woman herself. And she also said that she was very impressed that although we kind of run the organisation here in the UK, we're kind of working with our team in Uganda who sort of deliver the work on the ground. So it's really, us working in collaboration with them, but the actual work on the ground is delivered by local people. So that was one of the things that she sort of shared in terms of what we do. So our appeal is going to run from Sunday the 17th. It's going to be, as Olivia said, out on the radio, and then we're going to be doing a week-long campaign where we can take donations directly through the BBC and also through our website. So we're really keen to share the appeal as widely as we can. So hopefully some of you may have already seen our newsletter, you might have already seen our content. And of course, we know so many of you are already giving in so many different ways. But if you are happy to share some of the content, that would be brilliant as well, because it just helps us to reach out to new potential audiences. So if you're happy to share, donate or pray, all of it is really, really so valuable in terms of our appeal. Does anyone have any questions about that before we kind of move on? I mean, there's so much more kind of coming out over the next couple of weeks. So as Olivia said, it's sort of, we don't want to say too much because we really want you to sort of listen live, and then it will also be recorded. So we'll also be sharing the recording from the BBC studio. So without giving the full kind of content away, we'd really love you all to sort of listen out. And if you're not able to sort of listen live, we're very happy to share links to listen through the BBC. So we'll be talking about that more. And then lastly, if there's no questions on our appeal, I'm really, really delighted to hand over to Jo. So hopefully Jo is a familiar face to some of you already. So Jo has been here, I think 2 weeks now, and she's really, really hit the ground running. I mean, I think because she knows the organisation already, because she's already been with the charity for 2 years. So it's been really, really brilliant having Jo join the team. So I wanted to sort of hand over to Jo and let her kind of introduce herself to some people who might not know Jo, and then to reintroduce herself to some people who may recognise Jo. So Jo, I'll hand over to you.
Thanks so much, Chloe. It's so exciting. I can't believe in my first 2 weeks I'm getting to be a part of this Radio 4 appeal. It's absolutely brilliant. And especially because, I'm getting to see all of you another evening with. So there's a lot of familiar faces on this call and some new names as well. So it's lovely to sort of meet you all. And thanks so much for taking the time to hear from us and, hear this update about our appeal. It's really great to be back at Kids Club. I think Olivia always said to me that once you join the family, that's it, you're just always involved. And I have to say, yeah, that's exactly what happened. So yeah, about 18 months ago, I left, took a short hiatus, and now I'm back filling the incredibly large shoes of Olivia. So yeah, please do bear with me and be patient with me, because obviously Olivia is just an absolute superstar, and will definitely be missed. But it's amazing just to see how far the organisation has come, even in the last 18 months. Kids Club Kampala has always been an organisation that really is so ambitious and just wants to impact as many people and as many lives as possible. And I can really tell that just by coming back and reconnecting with Sam over in Uganda and having some video calls with him and just meeting the team. It's absolutely remarkable what's been achieved just in a short 18 months. So yeah, it's fantastic to be back. I'm here for a year covering Olivia. And yeah, I'm just really looking forward to reconnecting with you all. And my email address is jo@kidsclubkampala.org. So if you do want to get in touch with me about anything, yeah, I'd love to hear from you.
Great, thanks, Jo. And yeah, I'm just really, really pleased that Jo is back and she's going to be leading the team for the next year while I'm off. And I think, yeah, for those of you who've worked with Jo before, you'll know how brilliant she is. But I'm just really, really pleased to know that obviously everything's going to be in very safe and capable hands whilst Jo's kind of taking the lead for over the next year. So as I said, this is kind of my last sort of evening with for a little while, as I will be off on maternity leave for best part of a year. But I will obviously be watching from the sidelines and cheering everybody on, and more than happy to kind of also continue connecting with so many of our lovely supporters in informal ways as well. And yes, I just want to say kind of on behalf of everyone a big welcome to Jo, and I hope that all of our supporters who are joining this evening will join me in welcoming her. I guess that's kind of comes nearly to the end of our sort of formal presentation of what we wanted to kind of update everybody on this evening, but we have got a good amount of time to take any questions. If anyone does any questions for myself or for Joe or for Chloe or anyone else in the team, whether that's questions just about, you know, how it's going to work with Joe taking the lead, or whether that's questions about what's been happening in Uganda over the past few months, or questions about the appeal. We would be very happy to kind of answer any questions or take any comments or anything like that. Thanks, Ollie's put a nice comment in the chat. Very exciting about being on Radio 4. Yes, thanks, Ollie. We're really pleased, and it's very much been a team effort and getting it happening. So it's been quite a long process. And as I said, myself and Chloe had the opportunity to go to the BBC to be part of the recording a couple of weeks ago, which was very exciting. And then our team's been really busy behind the scenes getting everything ready for when it launches. So yes, as you can see on the screen, please do save the date, Sunday the 17th. It's going to be going live at 5 to 8 in the morning, and then at 9:25 in the evening on Sunday the 17th. Please do listen out if you can. Maybe you could you know, get some friends and family together to listen in together, and please do encourage those that you know to listen in as well. You know, let your friends and family know, let your church know, your kind of community, your neighbours, let people know. If you've got people who don't know about Kids Club Kampala and want to know why you support them, this is a really great opportunity for you to share more about what we do. If you are on social media, we'd love you to kind of share some of the posts around the upcoming appeal. If you're happy to do that, that would be really helpful. But just spreading the word, because we'd love to have as many people listening in as possible, and hopefully we will raise very much needed money to continue our vital work. As you know, it's been a challenging year with the cost of living crisis, not just here, but also in Uganda, meaning that it's not just harder to fundraise here, it's also more expensive to run our projects there. So really every penny raised through this appeal is going to make a massive difference. And as Chloe said, it goes live on Sunday the 17th, but it will be live for a whole week. It's then broadcast again on the Thursday of that week, but then it will be available to listen back on BBC Sounds as well. But in terms of making donations to the appeal, it's just for that 1 week only through the BBC. But obviously we can also take donations through our website before and after those dates.